Hey guys, so Marvel Studios retook Hall H this past weekend, and once again, they stole the show. Throughout this video, I'm going to be talking about all the movies and shows that they announced, but they announced 19 movies and shows. So there's a lot to cover. So quick disclaimer, this is going to be rapid fire. I'm going to be naming each show and movie and very quickly giving my personal thoughts and jumping to the next one. I will not be talking about every single one for multiple reasons. The most important ones are that, like I said, there's a lot of them. Also, if it's another season or a show that I've already talked about, there's nothing else that I have to say. And last but not least, I don't have thoughts on every single thing that they announced, especially stuff that they didn't elaborate upon. So if I don't mention a show or a movie in this video, it doesn't mean that I don't think it's important. It doesn't mean that I don't like it. It doesn't mean that I'm not gonna see it. It just means that right now, as I am talking to you, I don't have any thoughts on it. But just to be clear, I am going to watch every single thing that was announced on Friday and Saturday during the Marvel panels. Okay, we clear on that? All right, so like I just established, they had two panels throughout Comic-Con. The one on Friday, they announced and elaborated upon their animated releases. And then on Saturday, they had the big panel in Hall H in which they elaborated upon and announced their live action releases. And that panel, of course, was hosted by the Grand Poobah himself, Kevin Feige. All right, so let's start with the animated releases that were announced on Friday, starting with Marvel Zombies. So the bad news is that this show will be nothing like the comic. For those of you who don't know, the Marvel Zombies comic follow the zombified versions of the Marvel heroes and just the zombies. There are very few characters that are alive. In fact, the only character that I remember that's still alive in the Marvel Zombies comic is Black Panther. And feel free to correct me, those of you who know the comics a lot better than I do. But that was the cool and innovative aspect of the comic, that it was a zombie comic book strictly about the zombies, not about the human characters. The animated show is the complete opposite. In fact, it's pretty much a knockoff of The Walking Dead, but with superheroes, following a group of still living superheroes, played, of course, by the actors that are still under contract throughout the next three phases, and fighting zombified versions of the Marvel characters that are played by actors that are not under contract. So this is the only thing that they announced that I am very skeptical about, and I'm not very excited about, but as I said earlier, I will still give it a chance and check it out. Moving on to Spider-Man Freshman Year. So there's a lot of conflicting reports as to what the show was about. Originally, it was supposed to be a prequel to the MCU Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland. And then we find out that A, Tom Holland is not going to be voicing Spider-Man in it. And then B, that it takes place in an alternate reality or what-if scenario in which Norman Osborn was Peter's mentor instead of Tony Stark? I guess we're going to have to wait and see to check it out, but personally, I'm still excited about it because in it we're going to get to see Charlie Cox's Daredevil. That's one appearance. Moving on to the one that almost everyone is looking forward to the most, which is X-Men 97. So for those of you who have been sleeping under a rock and need to turn in their geek cards, this show will be a direct sequel to the 90s X-Men cartoon. And for those of you who don't know, that, even though that show is one of the greatest of all time, even though that show was one of the major contributors to change the phase of animation, right there with Batman the Animated Series, Animaniacs, and Gargoyles, even though it's regarded so highly, it is still one of the shows. It is still a show that had a horrible final season, so bad that it's one of the worst final seasons of any show. And sadly, the quality of that season had nothing to do with the success of the show, or the creators, or the cast. It was just something that was due to crappy behind the scenes business decisions. It was nobody's fault. So if there was ever a show that deserved a do-over, that deserved the opportunity to finish correctly, it is this one. So Marvel Studios is giving us just that. They're gonna pick up the animated series right where it left off and give it its proper ending. In fact, Disney Plus has already ordered 2 seasons of X-Men 97. And for those of you who may not remember, the original series ended with Xavier on his deathbed and being taken away to an alien planet where he would hopefully be healed, but with no certainty that Xavier would ever come back, leaving the X-Men without a leader. So at Comic-Con this past weekend, we got confirmation that, very much like the comics from the 90s, Magneto is going to take over as the leader of the X-Men, and he will be wearing that amazingly fabulous outfit that he used to wear towards the late 90s. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that, bub. So moving on to Saturday with the live action releases, in which the first big announcement of the day was that Phase 4 will culminate with She-Hulk Attorney at Law and Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So that is it for Phase 4, and of course, immediately the announcement was met with just endless criticisms from all these people saying that it's the worst phase in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the weakest phase. And I have a lot of counterpoints to that, but all I'm going to say is this, okay? There's no reason why Marvel Studios needs to follow the exact same formula that they followed for the first 3 phases, even if it was a successful formula. There's no reason why they have to do the same thing. Also, those phases, those movies, when they first started making them, they didn't know they were going to release them in phases, let alone that those phases would lead to the Infinity Saga. Here, with these current 3 phases, 4, 5, and 6, for the first time, they're going into 3 phases knowing that they're going to make a saga, that it's going to be the multiverse saga, and that the big bad is going to be Kang, okay? So, knowing this ahead of time, of course they're going to have a different strategy and a different form for releasing these movies and phases. Now, that this past weekend we learned most of Feige's plan for these 3 phases. If you step back and look at this plan, you can see that he's crafting a 3-act story, with each phase being an act. So, if Phase 4 is Act 1 of the story, the 2 main things that it needs to achieve before its end is establishing the plot and establishing the characters, which they have done. So, as far as I'm concerned, Phase 4 has been a success. It has achieved what the first act of a 3-act story needs to achieve. Now, if we get to the end of Phase 6 and it didn't work, and all the things that were established in Phase 4 don't end up paying off, then and only then will I officially agree with all the naysayers and say that this is the worst phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But until then, I will continue to give Marvel Studios the benefit of the doubt. Now, with this announcement and the fact that She-Hulk and Black Panther 2 will be the last 2 installments of Phase 4, they gave us a new trailer for She-Hulk, and they revealed the first ever trailer for Black Panther 2. So let's talk about those, starting with trailer 2 for She-Hulk Attorney at Law. I was already excited about the show when I saw the first trailer, now even more so with trailer 2, because they revealed that they have crafted better VFX for the show. She-Hulk looks a million times better than she looked in the first trailer. The humor and tone is exactly as the sensational She-Hulk comic that I used to read in the early 90s. She breaks the 4th wall in the trailer, which is something that she did in the comics way before Deadpool. That was She-Hulk's thing. A lot of revelations of Marvel characters that are going to make their first appearance in the show. The ones that I'm most excited about is the Wrecking Crew. And of course, the thing that I'm most excited about that they revealed in the second trailer of She-Hulk Attorney at Law is that in this show we're going to get Charlie Cox as Daredevil, and of course the premiere of the trailer for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Now this is one of the most beautiful trailers that I have ever seen to any movie, and a lot of you have asked me if I still feel the same way that I felt when I filmed my honest review of the first Black Panther movie. And my answer is yes, still feel the same way. Still heartbroken at the passing of Chadwick Boseman. I still feel very uncomfortable seeing anybody else in the Panther suit. But at the same time, I feel conflicted because I'm excited that we're going to get a Namor of Mexican / Mesoamerican mythological descent, played by the great Tenoch Huerta. We're finally gonna get a Hispanic actor playing a major Marvel character. So happy for that, but saddened by the passing of our king. So very conflicted, gonna check it out, but I'm gonna do so with a bitter heart. And of course, the second question that all of you asked me is who I think is in the Panther suit at the end of the trailer. And my answer to that is Killmonger, which I know makes absolutely no sense to a lot of you, but that's my theory and I'm sticking to it. Now, if I turn out to be right, I promise that I will make a video in which I will elaborate as to why I think it's Killmonger. But for now, I'm just gonna stay quiet and wait for the movie to come out. And with that, we move on to Phase 5, which will be kicked off by Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now, the big story attached to this movie is that Emma Fuhrmann, who played Cassie Lang in Avengers Endgame, was replaced with Catherine Newton in this movie. And a lot of people were outraged by this. And while I agree that it's a little unfair, at the same time, I have to contend with the fact that, A, when they made Avengers Endgame, they didn't know there was going to be a third Ant-Man, and B, Emma Fuhrmann was casted in the role of grown-up Cassie Lang without the consent of Peyton Reed, the director of the Ant-Man movies. So, going into this third installment, he's going to want to cast the person that he thinks is right for his vision of grown-up Cassie Lang, and that's Catherine Newton. So there you go. This really sucks for Emma Fuhrmann, and I think it's awesome that so many people stand up on her behalf, but, you know, this is another movie with a different director, so we have to respect his vision. Also, if you've seen Catherine Newton in anything, you'd know that she's fantastic, and she can fit the tone of the Ant-Man movies, and if necessary, she can carry a franchise. So I am very much on board with her playing Cassie Lang, aka Stinger or Stature, whichever one they end up calling her. And thus we move on to another third installment, and this one we know for sure will close out the series, and that will be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. A lot of people are really sad about this news, that this will be the final Guardians movie with the lineup of Guardians that we know and love, but I love me a trilogy, and a definitive trilogy, one that ends with the third installment, and that's exactly what James Gunn always said he was going to do, and he is sticking to that promise, he's sticking to that plan. The really cool part of their section of the panel is that they revealed and confirmed some castings that we have heard of. The casting that they indefinitely confirmed is that Will Poulter will be playing Adam Warlock, which, as you guys know, I am 100% behind. Then there was the revelation that Chukwudi Onwuje will be playing the High Evolutionary, which is really exciting, both because he's a great actor, also that he's the antagonist of the movie, and on top of all that, he, for those of you who don't know, the comics, he is the creator of Rocket Raccoon. So we're gonna delve into the origins of Rocket. Now, early reports said that We were also going to delve into Drax's origins and his family and all that. That hasn't been confirmed, but I hope that's the case. And the third and final casting that was indefinitely confirmed was that Maria Bakalova will be playing Cosmo, the space dog. And of course, immediately, all the dude bros came out of the woodwork to point out and criticize and complain about the fact that in the comics, Cosmo is a boy dog. Now, if you were one of those dude bros, just do me a quick favor. Bend over, and just keep bending over. Just keep bending over, keep bending over, keep bending over until your head goes up your ass, because that's where it belongs. So let's take a moment to talk about Echo and Agatha, the Coven of Chaos. The reason I put these two shows together is because these are shows that so many people are bitching about and complaining and saying that we didn't ask for this. Why are you making this? Here are some interesting facts for you. Nobody asked for Godfather. Nobody asked for Star Wars. Nobody asked for Back to the Future. They're all fucking great. Nobody gives a shit what you asked for or didn't ask for. For 14 years, Marvel Studios has been making shows and movies with so much anticipation and so much weight behind them and so much expectation behind them. All things that we asked for. So after 14 years of doing that, they decide to make two shows on two characters that they have faith on, that they feel they have interesting stories to tell about. And you're gonna bitch about that after 14 years of excellent service? Kindly shut the fuck up, okay? And give them a chance. And I'm especially gonna give Echo a chance because it will feature Charlie Cox as Daredevil. That's three appearances. Moving on to the Marvels, it's still the movie from Phase 5 that I'm looking forward to the most, and for now, that's all I'm gonna say about that. Moving on to the MCU version of Blade. Holy shit balls, Marvel Studios has access to use the three franchises that started it all. That started the comic book movie boom. Blade, Spiderman, and XMen. And they're all getting releases throughout the multiverse saga. That's fucking amazing. Personally, even though it might be a little distracting in the movie, I hope that Wesley Snipes has some involvement or a cameo, okay? Because Wesley Snipes was Marvel's biggest cheerleader in Hollywood throughout the 90s. He campaigned and lobbied long and hard to make a Black Panther movie produced and starring him. And unfortunately, nobody gave him the time of day. But then he was given the opportunity to play Blade, and he jumped on it, trying to cut his losses, and inadvertently started the comic book movie boom. Way back in 1998, all the way through now. We have all these movies because of him. So if there is one famous actor that deserves a cameo in any of these movies, especially Blade or Black Panther, is Wesley Snipes. Moving on to Captain America: New World Order. So this will be the first official Captain America movie with Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson's version of Captain America, and I applaud that. But immediately, people are theorizing and requesting that Chris Evans do a cameo in this movie. No, just for the love of Christ, no. Chris Evans has already said this, but I'm going to say it in my own words. For Steve Rogers to appear in a Sam Wilson Captain America movie, it would be detrimental for Anthony's progression as the character. So for the love of Christ, don't do that. Captain America's retired. Leave his fate ambiguous. I love everybody coming up with theories as to what old Steve is doing now. From living on the moon to producing shows for PBS. Whatever. Who cares? Steve Rogers had an excellent, perfect arc in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let it be, let it end. I don't want to see him again for the same reason. I don't want to see him again. I don't want to see Tony Stark again. And I don't want to see Natasha Romanoff again for the same reason. They had a perfect run. Let them be. Also, there were Captain America 4 posters all over Comic-Con, and on those posters, we got to see that in the movie, Sharon Carter will be wearing a comic book accurate costume. And you know I'm all about them comic book accurate costumes. With that said, let's move on to the next Marvel Disney Plus show, which will be Daredevil Born Again. You want me to say it again? Charlie Cox as Daredevil! That's 4. 4 shows throughout the multiverse saga that will feature Charlie Cox as Daredevil. And this one will also feature Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin, which is awesome. But 4. So Daredevil fans are going to be eaten well all the way until 2025. And thus we find out that Phase 5 will be capped off by the Thunderbolts. I called it. I said it since Falcon and the Winter Soldier, from the moment that Julia Louis-Dreyfus popped up as the Contessa Valentina Francesca de la Fontaine and gave John Walker a blank business card. From the moment that she appeared, I said it. I said that they were going to do the Thunderbolts, which, for those of you who don't know, is Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad, where they recruit both former villains and anti-heroes to go on missions for the government, which is freaking awesome. 2 things that I'm going to say about it. People keep theorizing as to how they're going to do the Red Hulk in this version of the Thunderbolts since William Hurt passed away. My answer to that is, what the fuck do they need the Red Hulk for if they have the Abomination? And also, if they do the Red Hulk in the MCU, I would rather see him in a Hulk solo movie with the Mark Ruffalo Hulk, so which we could potentially get in Phase 6. So there you go. And also, there's a rumor going around that the CO of the Thunderbolts, their commanding officer, is going to be Bucky Barnes. And one of my few little complaints about Falcon and the Winter Soldier is that while Sam's arc was resolved and he figured out his place in the world after the snap, Bucky didn't get the same. His fate was still very ambiguous. He still really didn't figure out his place in the world. So placing him in command of all these former villains and anti-heroes trying to make amends makes the perfect sense. And then, of course, Feige dropped the ultimate bomb by revealing the beginning and end of Phase 6. And of course, Phase 6 will be kicked off by the MCU version of the Fantastic Four. Now, all of you know that I am super freaking excited about this. And people keep asking me after all these announcements, what was the thing that you were most excited about? Well, other than Charlie Cox making 4 appearances on 4 different shows as Daredevil, still, after all this time, even after all those announcements, the movie, the thing that I'm most excited about being released as part of the MCU is the Fantastic Four movie. I've said it before, I've said it a million times. I just want one good Fantastic Four movie before I die. I love the Fantastic Four. And I want them to do what they did for Spiderman and Daredevil and Punisher and all these characters that other studios took a stab at, and they were okay, but MCU made them even better or perfect. So that's what I want them to do. As far as the casting of the 4, I really, really hope that John Krasinski comes back as Mr. Fantastic, as he played him previously on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. If he comes back, I think it would be perfect if his wife, Emily Blunt, played Susan Storm. There's a rumor going around the internet, or at least a severe fan desire for Jason Segel to play Benjamin J. Grimm, the Thing, who's my favorite Marvel character. And personally, as a massive, massive, massive Thing fan, I have to say that I agree. That would be perfect. That would be wonderful. So I'm 100% behind the possibility of Jason Segel playing the Thing. As far as Human Torch, The top choice that I've heard from a lot of fans, as far as who they want to play the character, is Zac Efron. Not a big Zac Efron fan, but I think he would be perfect for Johnny Storm. If not him, my top choice is Dacre Montgomery, and I'm gonna stick to that until the movie is released. And last but not least, the last big announcement is that in 2025, Phase 6 will be capped off by not one, but 2 Avengers movies. In early May, we're gonna get Avengers, The Kang Dynasty, and in early November, we're gonna get Avengers, Secret Wars. I called it. I told you that we're gonna cap this shit off with Secret Wars. Who has 2 thumbs and all the bragging rights? This guy. And bragging rights are the best kind of rights. So what really struck me about this announcement is that in 2025, Marvel Studios will have the 2 most coveted spots for movie releases in that year. The first one being at the beginning of the summer in May, which is the beginning of the summer movie season, which is the highest grossing movie season of the year. And then the second Avengers film of that year, Secret Wars, will be released the early November, which is the beginning of the holiday movie season, which is the second most profitable movie season of the year. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is the ultimate flex. And of course, in spite of all these awesome announcements, in spite of them talking about 19 releases through the next few years, all the way through 2025, in spite of that, people still bitched and complained that he didn't say anything about Deadpool 3 or Shang-Chi 2 or Armor Wars. They left 8 open spots for Phase 6. There's plenty of room there for those releases that we already know are coming, all right? Give them a moment. There's no reason why he needs to reveal his entire plan in one sitting. And as the old adage goes, always leave them wanting more. So those are my thoughts on the San Diego Comic-Con 2022 MCU announcements. Feel free to comment in the comment section below. As per usual, my only request is don't fight each other, respect each other's opinion. We're all on the same team. And as per usual, thank you so much for all your love and support, because I couldn't do what I do without you.